The following podcast is a Dear Media production.
Welcome back to the Real Stuff podcast, and we are live in the studio today with our guest, Lia Higgins, who is a former big law attorney turned content creator, mental health advocate, writer, and mother. You may have seen her on social media. Her handle is OneLitMama. And if you don't already follow her on TikTok, where she has amassed an audience of just about 100,000 followers, you can expect to find her candid, nuanced takes on motherhood, mental health, and some of the immense pressures that women face today. Lia recently published an essay in Oprah Daily where she shared her experience about using ketamine therapy to treat her postpartum depression. And in today's episode, we dive deeply into that, as well as the traumatic labor and delivery experience that kickstarted that crippling postpartum depression. Much less relevant to her life as a content creator, but on a more personal note, Lia is the daughter-in-law of Barbara Corcoran, who you likely know from Shark Tank. And in this episode, I ask her some deeply personal questions about how it feels to be related to a celebrity, especially when you are now trying to build your own career in media and prove your own worth. And in response to those questions, she really opened up way more than I expected her to about all the pros and cons that come along with that. We also have a deep discussion in this episode about identity loss, the invisible labor of motherhood, the guilt that comes along with asking other people for help, how privilege plays into mental health access, and so much more. I had so much fun diving deep into this conversation live right here in our studio, and I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. So let's get into it today with Lia Higgins. Hi, Lia.
Hi, Lucie.
Welcome to The Real Stuff. How are you?
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you for coming to our studio and being here in person. I have done very few in-person interviews for this show, and I think it makes a big difference.
I think so, too. It's also so much more fun, I think.
Agreed.
I love doing them in person.
It's more of a big deal.
Like I said, I got my hair done, so definitely a big deal.
You look beautiful.
Thanks.
I met Lia about a year ago. Mm-hmm. She reached out to me because she was leaving her job in big law and really wanted to dive into becoming a content creator. At the time, I think you had 1,000 followers.
Yeah, I think it might have been more than a year ago, and I wasn't. I remember you said, like, are you set on leaving your job in law yet? And I was like, no, not at all. And you were like, okay, good. Like, I think you can build this. Don't leave your day job yet. And I was like, yeah, that's fair. And I did not. It was a while after that when I decided to leave.
Yes. But. And now here we are today. I just checked your TikTok this morning. You are so close to 100,000 followers on TikTok.
I know, so
Congrats.
Crazy. Thank you.
For people in my audience who didn't know you before coming onto the show, how do you introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
You know, it's funny you ask because I'm still struggling with that. And I'm very honest about that. For so long, and I've talked about this a few times, including in my content, I had this title of big law attorney, and it was so simple to introduce myself. Hi, I'm Lia Higgins. I'm a mom of 2 in New York City, born and raised there, and I'm a lawyer. Easy, done, 1, 2, 3. And now I'm like, well, I still don't know. I'm still figuring that out. I haven't quite adopted content creator yet. I think I'm close, but I think that's pretty accurate at this point. Content creator, hopefully I'm willing it into existence that I'm a writer, because I've had some freelance pieces, and hopefully we'll be doing that a little bit more seriously because that's my real love.
Do you feel when you introduce yourself as a content creator that you have to almost caveat it or explain to people what you're doing is actually an attempt to be your career and it's not just some fun side thing you're working on?
Yes, I think I'd be lying if I said that that wasn't the feeling before. I think I've kind of warmed to it more, and I'm very much a believer that, am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
Of course.
Wonderful. We should stop shitting on content creators and influencers as a job, because I very strongly feel that what women have done with the content creation industry is they've capitalized on a consumer market that they've not only contributed to, but created. And we should be celebrating that. And I think it's rather funny that the two things that oftentimes you hear are not real jobs are stay-at-home motherhood and content creation. And what do you know? Those are both female-dominated fields.
Very true.
I think part of the reason why I still feel a need to caveat is really more to do with having grown up in a very certain environment in New York City that's so tied to traditional paths of prestige, right? So getting the law degree and going to be a big law attorney very much fit into that box. Being a content creator and blasting to the world that I did ketamine to treat my PPD, not so much in that box. It's not so much that I get public backlash for the shift. It's more my own internal mindset. Sometimes it's like, wait, is this allowed? Am I breaking the rules too much? But I don't know, fuck it.
And to that point, let's move on to something that women do.
Let's hear it.
That men aren't doing, which is pushing babies out.
Oh, yeah.
You had a traumatic experience.
Yes.
Birthing your first.
Yes.
And ended up with a postpartum hemorrhage.
Yes.
I don't know how comfortable you are talking about this experience, but I have seen that you've written about it online. So are you comfortable opening up about what happened?
100%. Let's get into it. I think really why I started my social media account was to share these types of experiences so other women would feel, one, less blindsided, and two, less alone if they did have these experiences. And there's so much shame still surrounding anything related to motherhood that may be seen as negative, and there shouldn't be. I think it forces us into kind of this cone of silence where we're suffering alone, and there's no real need for that. So I think my hope is that by putting these stories out there, that it starts to become a little bit more normalized and women and men alike feel more comfortable talking about these things. I do not want to fearmonger. If this does happen to you, there's nothing to be ashamed about. You didn't do anything wrong. Things happen. That's just the truth.
I appreciate you calling out the desire to not be fear-mongering, but also just speaking the truth.
Yeah.
Because ever since we've opened up the application portal for The Real Stuff, where people can go to luciefink.com/apply and send in their stories, we have received, I kid you not, hundreds of traumatic birth stories.
Oof.
And I don't know the stats on how many births are traumatic versus lovely. I don't know if there's a stat for that. But I do know that people who go through the traumatic stories have such a strong desire to speak out and talk about it.
Yeah.
And I've had to be very choosy about who we're bringing on the show and how many episodes we're doing about traumatic births, because I don't want the podcast to become a fear-mongering platform where people are then scared to get pregnant.
Yeah.
But I love the reframe of, this happened to me. Also, look at me now. I'm alive, I'm out of it.
Yeah.
And I'm here to talk about it, just so that if you are going through it, you don't feel like you're the only person in the world who this has happened to.
I think oftentimes, and I do think this is changing more, and to your point about people sending in all these applications wanting to share their stories, I think this is more common now. I think even when I started on TikTok 2 years ago, people really weren't talking about these things. And what really shook me was that even as smart as I thought I was, my best friend is a doctor, like my mom is in the medical professional field, I had never heard of a postpartum hemorrhage. It didn't even cross my mind that this is something that could happen. And perhaps looking back, that was naive, but I really don't think that a lot of women think this will happen to them. It's unfortunate because we have kind of this false perception of what birth should look like. And then if your experience doesn't live up to that expectation, that fairy tale delivery, it's such a wound. And that's part of my birth trauma that I think is also important to discuss, not only the physical trauma of it, but I really mourn the loss of that experience with my son, that he didn't get to lay on my chest and have skin to skin, really. He was pretty much taken from me right away. And luckily my husband was in the room and he had that bonding time with him right away. But I wanted that, of course, and I had pictured that. And when I first started bleeding out, it's sad and almost sick. But the thing that I remember thinking most vividly was, I don't look or I don't feel the way I've seen other women look in the photos.
Wow. That also just ignited a whole other thought spiral we could go down about the unfortunate nature. You know, social media has many pros.
Yeah.
But the drawbacks of particularly women seeing other women share, quote, content of key moments in their lives, weddings, births, and the stylization around these moments where, you know, I'm the first to admit as I was waiting for my water to break, I got a blow dry. My hair in my postpartum content looks luscious.
It does. I remember.
And people are like, how did you do? Style your hair? I said, yeah, I got a blowout the day before while I was waiting to go into labor.
Amazing.
And it is unfortunate, though, that if a woman is in a situation where she didn't have time to go do that or didn't do that or didn't put on her makeup before the baby was born, and they look back at their photos, they are comparing their reality to a lot of other people's stylized moments.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. We kind of joke that I look like Shrek in all of my post-birth photos with my son because I had so much blood loss that I was literally like yellow. And so the only photo that we sent out to people, I edited to be black and white.
That's great.
Mainly not
Good fix.
so that we didn't scare people.
Yeah.
And then when I was in labor with my daughter, I brought my Dyson to the hospital and a full bag of makeup. And before I got the epidural, I was like, you're going to let me go do my glam, and then we'll be right back. You know what? No shame. I was like, I'm getting better photos this time. This is going to be a different experience. I'm willing this to work out, and that's that.
Yeah, and I'm not even saying that it's necessarily a drawback.
Yeah.
It just is an interesting fact of life. Can we go to that moment when you started bleeding out?
Yeah.
You're lying on the table in the postpartum room. You had a vaginal birth, correct?
Yeah.
So baby comes out, and what happens?
We kind of realized quickly that he was okay. So I don't want to scare people on this front either, but he wasn't breathing at 100% capacity. It wasn't the numbers that they wanted to be seeing on the monitors. So I think he had just swallowed too much amniotic fluid. Mm-hmm. He was stuck. My birth was incredibly painful. Despite having an epidural, I think he got stuck. And that ring of fire situation that they say is only for people who do not have an epidural, not true. It was incredible. I actually blacked out at one point. It was really quite bad. And I thought it was only in the movies where they were like, yelling at the doctor that you need to take the baby out right now. No. Like, this happened in real life. I was like, you have to cut and take him out. So they did an episiotomy. He came out. So they put him off to the side. They have, what are those setups for the newborns where they clean them off and everything. They put him in there, and all of the doctors and my husband are all kind of focused on trying to get him to cough up the amniotic fluid. And luckily, there was an incredible NICU nurse who came up and got it all out of his system, and he was fine within the first maybe 15, 20 minutes, maybe a half hour. It's, again, a little iffy on the details. But I remember yelling at him from my bed saying, breathe for mommy, Jackson, breathe for mommy. I don't know what I thought that was going to do, but I thought maybe hearing the sound of my voice might help. You never know. Mother-child connection is a wild thing. You know that. And then I stopped being able to communicate at some point.
Is that because you were losing consciousness?
I think so. I'm not really sure, but I felt like I couldn't even produce words. Like I had no energy to do it anymore. And I was kind of looking around, and the rest happened so fast that my mom has retold the story that she entered the room at that point. She had gone out for the actual delivery, and she re-entered the room, and she tells me that she's the one who realized that my stats had all dropped on the monitor. Everyone's worried about the baby, but it's still her baby that's also just gone through this delivery, and she had stood outside the whole time, and she heard that it had not gone as smoothly as we would have liked. When I did come to more seriously, it looked like a Saw set. So there was a lot of blood everywhere.
So it was really just lifting the blanket up and you're covered in blood.
I don't know, but that is what I would imagine is actually what happened.
And was this your uterus rupturing?
No, I think that what had happened is there was a small piece of my placenta that broke off most people don't know this, so if you haven't had children, after you push a baby out, they do press on your stomach to push out your placenta. And most of the time, everything comes out at once, but a tiny piece, I think, had broken off in my uterus that was preventing it from closing. So it's rare, especially with first-time deliveries and younger moms. I was 28 at the time, but they had to go back in. My doctor had actually left the room at this point. He had a scheduled surgery. So he had left, and they had to bring in another doctor who, this is going to be graphic, but reached into my uterus and there was no time to re-administer an epidural, I don't know, or give me another dose. And I couldn't be still enough for that to happen. So I felt everything and I kind of blacked out again from the pain. And one of my only memories from that time, like the only thing I remember really clearly was looking over at my husband when he was skin to skin with my son. He was sitting in a chair with a doctor next to him. And his eyes were just so bloodshot with fear. And I just remember thinking, like, holy fuck, like, I can't even comfort you right now. Like, I just felt so bad for him, like, to watch his son, you know, not be breathing 100% at first and then to have this catastrophic event with his wife all in an hour. I say this because I think it's important not to overlook what a partner's going through, even when it's the mom who's experiencing the actual physical trauma.
I can't tell if it's the lighting in here, but it kind of looks like you're crying.
A little bit. I think that when you relive the experience and you go through the details and, you know, what you can remember, what you can't remember, what you didn't get to have, as I was saying earlier, with that, you know, bonding moment with your child. And also I have another birth to compare it to now. So I know what it could feel like.
Yeah.
It just wasn't that. And it was, I think, really terrifying for my mom, for my husband, for the doctors. The nurse who had helped with the delivery actually came to visit me. She was like, that's probably the worst hemorrhage I've ever seen. It's like,
wow.
That's great.
It's a crazy story. And I'm sure that being your first birth, it just set up your experience of entering into motherhood as this traumatic moment that then leads you into this beautiful moment of life, but you're kind of coming out of this crazy experience.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who, it really does make you think about the people whose labor and delivery are seamless and perfect. Obviously there are, I believe to my core, there are different things for different people that are a problem, and maybe someone else's biggest problem was so easy for them, but they have another problem.
Right.
And so it's not to say one thing is better or worse than the other.
Right.
But it's clear that going into motherhood, having had, especially your first, a traumatic birth, and then you go home and you're just expected to dive right into this new life on the back of a traumatic surgery or just a traumatic experience. It's different.
Yeah. I think even in those few hours, they were waiting to stabilize me. So I didn't actually go up to the postpartum floor for like many hours after I gave birth because they still needed to like stabilize me for a while. I couldn't even be happy that I had this child at the time because I was like, first of all, trying not to throw up everywhere, but also like, what the fuck just happened? And like, now you hand me this baby that I can't lift because I'm so weak. I could barely lift a water bottle. I was just, it was not a great entry into motherhood, which is really sad. And it's not that I didn't bond with my son right away. I was very much in love with him from the get-go, but I couldn't process anything that had just happened, really. It was very difficult.
Do you think that any of that experience was somewhat of a catalyst for your future postpartum depression?
Yes. Yeah. And I think because, as you said earlier, you're handed this baby and you go right into motherhood, right? Like you go right into it. And there was no time for me to emotionally process what was going on because then there were new shit shows to process. And it's also the same time when, you know, people stop calling, the novelty of the fact that you just had a baby wears off. And that's not to fault anyone. But like, you're stuck at home with this child, you can't really leave, and you're still physically and emotionally traumatized from the whole situation.
Talk me through, once you get home with Jackson, what were some of those early signs you had where you maybe thought for the first time, I think I'm experiencing postpartum depression?
I don't think I ever really had that thought. I thought that I had severe postpartum anxiety, which I probably did too. First of all, we were very nervous about Jackson getting sick. He was jaundiced for a little bit after. And then we had a situation where I was very, very fortunate to have a baby nurse. And this baby nurse, the first one we had come really highly recommended. I would go in to check on him a couple times throughout the night. I was pumping anyway in the middle of the night, and I would go in and check. And then one morning, I just got a weird feeling. I was like, I'm going to go in and check. And he was flipped over on his stomach, swaddled, face down, slid down her lap, and she was fast asleep, like hanging off the side of the bed. I swear to God, my heart stopped. I was like, I'm going to flip this baby over and he's going to be not breathing.
How did you approach that situation?
I took my son and I ran into the bedroom, and then I promptly sent my husband in to tell her that we no longer needed her assistance.
You said someone else to go do the letting go.
I just like had enough. I was like, I'm now really emotionally depleted. There was another element of, God, looking back, like telling all of this, it just feels so crazy. I had to miss my best friend's wedding because Jackson was early. And because of the hemorrhage, I probably could have done it with my second birth, like gone even just for the ceremony. With the first one, I was so immunocompromised that there was just, my doctor was like, no way. And I would have had to go like in a wheelchair or something. Like I couldn't walk distances.
Right.
It would have been drawing more attention to the situation than was appropriate. And I think that emotionally also just like set me off. I remember my best friends, one of our mutual friends, calling me. They FaceTimed me from the ceremony, and I couldn't believe I wasn't there.
So you felt like it was maybe more postpartum anxiety relating to keeping the baby safe. And then you have your second. And you were just explaining to me having an 18-month age gap between the two.
Yeah.
The first experience just sort of, no pun intended, bled into the second.
Yeah.
And it was all just this haze of an early entry into motherhood.
Yeah.
When was it in the experience of having your second? Because you do write a little bit about this in the Oprah piece. Was it that moment in the bathtub when you realized I have to figure something out to get out of this fog? Like, what was the moment that you realized something needed to be done?
Yeah. So this is the thing, actually, and I got a lot of DMs about this after the Oprah piece came out. My experience in postpartum depression, and this might not be everyone's, but my experience was very much that it happened so quickly. The shift from I'm just exhausted and stressed and wound up in new motherhood to no, this is a real problem.
What did that no, this is a real problem look like? Like you not wanting to be around?
Me thinking about it. I don't think I ever thought that I would actually take my own life. I don't think that's what happened. It was more that I thought for brief moments in time, would it be better? For them, for me, I was so lost, so overwhelmed, so emotionally underwater, and it wasn't something I could intellectualize my way out of because everything was fine. I have this beautiful life. I have beautiful children, 2 healthy babies. I have a great marriage, a wonderful husband. I live in a wonderful city in the world, in a great apartment. Like, it wasn't like anything was actually wrong. So I couldn't justify the way I was feeling. I just couldn't get out of the darkness somehow. And there was a continuous feedback loop, no matter what I did, that it was wrong. And to the point where I was like able to convince myself that maybe I'm not a great mom, which I don't think looking back was ever true. I think I've always very much loved my babies. I actually want to clarify this. I didn't ever not love motherhood. And I didn't ever not love my children. That was never the case. But I think I really struggled with feeling like I had to get everything 100% right every second of every day. And even when I would tell others and tell myself that you don't have to love every second of motherhood, I was like, well, wait, why? Why am I not thriving in every single minute of this as, one's puking, one's screaming, I haven't slept in 3 days,
Gee, I wonder why you're not loving every moment.
Right. And like looking back on it, I'm like, oh. But in the moment, I just couldn't really figure it out.
Would you say that some of, obviously mental illness due to hormones, if it's postpartum depression, is just there's not a rhyme or reason to it. It doesn't matter where you live, how much money you have, how your relationship is, if your kids are healthy or not. It's just invisible.
Yeah.
But some of the elements that make motherhood hard, I believe, can contribute to the postpartum depression, namely carrying a heavy mental load, feeling like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, and maybe you lost your own identity going from having a job to now being a stay-at-home mom and trying to figure out, who am I now? Were things involving mental weight and the actual physical toll of parenthood, as well as the identity loss from becoming a mom, were those wrapped up in any of your feelings around the depression?
Yeah, I think that especially while I was still at my job, and my husband is really an incredible father and very helpful, supportive of me, supportive of our children, very much involved. But there are some things that I feel like just default to mom, no matter how proactive your partner is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I really built up some resentment for how that was going when I was still a lawyer, practicing every day.
So you both were still working.
Yeah.
And what are some of those things that you felt like were defaulting to you?
Like arranging doctor's appointments, dealing with applications for their preschool, scheduling classes. There's always something, whether it's ordering the groceries. You know, my husband sometimes jokes that, you know, the toilet paper appears in the house because the gremlins came. And I'm like, no, I'm the gremlin. And I look like one too these days. Like, yeah, I'm the gremlin. That's how the toilet paper got to the house. It's the little things that end up piling up. And I would be an asshole to say that I am not incredibly privileged. I have help. I have a nanny. I have someone who helps me come clean my house once a week. I am not doing everything on my own. So my hat tips off to any mom who is doing that all on her own. And I give immense credit to those women. They are superhuman as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. But it still added up. And I was working late hours and also trying to make sure my kids had everything they needed. And I've told this story before, but the day I kind of knew that this was not going to last with my career, my daughter had been hospitalized for croup. We had gone to the ER in the middle of the night, and she needed a follow-up appointment with her pediatrician not long after. Mm-hmm. But of course, I had a deadline at work, so I'm on my phone emailing, trying to push whatever the deadline or the meeting was. And then I ran home, hit the deadline, had to run out to a preschool tour for my son, and then came home. And I think I worked till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And
it's just too much.
Yeah, just like that kind of thing builds after a while. And then on top of that, as you mentioned earlier, there was this huge identity shift. I had gone from being, you know, a 28-year-old with like a normal life. I go out to drinks with friends. I'm with my husband. We can pick up and leave whenever we want. Very free as you are when you're in your 20s, and a lawyer with 2 kids, totally different career that was very much outside the realm of anything I thought I would be doing. A huge sense of I don't know who I am without labels that give automatic respect, I guess.
Life changes so much, and you're just kind of expected to change very quickly with it.
Yeah.
Especially for someone whose identity is wrapped up a little bit in what you do.
Yeah.
Who am I anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to figure out. I feel we could talk about this societal stigma and problem for eternity. Mm. But I do want to move on to psychedelics.
Okay, let's do it.
Who was the first person to tell you, maybe you should look into ketamine? What had you heard about it? Mm-hmm. And then how did you actually get in the door to get the IV drip?
This was all a very quick turnaround. So it was my therapist who suggested it.
And just to be clear, why were SSRIs not a first line of defense?
In part because I have had previous negative experiences with SSRIs. I've never been on them like long term.
Okay.
I've tried them on occasion throughout my life when maybe I was going through a difficult moment, especially my dad when he got diagnosed with cancer. I think I was really struggling with that. And
you didn't like how it made you feel?
It did not go well, to put it lightly. It did not go well. And so I was hesitant to try them anyway, but I did voice that as an option to my therapist, kind of like, oh, maybe I should, try antidepressants, like give that another go. And from her professional standpoint, she was just like, honey, we don't have time for that. Figuring out the right cocktail of SSRIs, because sometimes it's not just one that you need, and figuring out the right dosage, even if it is just one, it can take time, and then to adjust and have them work right away, it's a time-consuming process.
When she says we don't have time for this, is that because you hit rock bottom?
Yeah.
What happened in that moment?
I think I'm not yet at the point where I'm even self-aware enough to identify what that was, except that I was just in such a dark emotional place. I felt that I couldn't do anything right, and that I had somehow, like, through all of these choices or non-choices I'd made in the last few years, I'd like blown up my life somehow.
When was this?
A couple months ago. It was a good chunk after my daughter was born that I was also like hesitant to even feel that it was postpartum depression. I was like, I had to Google. I was like, can you still have postpartum depression if it's not like 3 months out from, and yes, you can. I think it was just this real feeling of intense despair that she was just like, I don't really see why we would take more time of you living in this dark a space when I actually believe that there's something that works even better, arguably. So there's a lot of research on ketamine and its treatment of depression. And you might want to fact check me, but I'm pretty sure that it is the most researched treatment for depression in the last 30 years. And it is incredibly effective. I don't want to get the numbers wrong, but significantly more effective actually than SSRIs, and it doesn't have the same waiting period. It works pretty quickly after.
So to be clear, it's an IV drip.
Yes, IV ketamine, I should say. Not the research is with respect to IV ketamine. Not there are other ways that you can consume ketamine.
Okay,
it's
and
IV
she recommended you do IV ketamine.
Yes, I actually was speaking with the doctor. So I go to a clinic where you're monitored by a doctor. This is all prescribed. Everything is very much buttoned up, legal. And I think that was great for me because I had so many misconceptions about ketamine and stereotypes. I had never done psychedelics for funsies. So I was kind of like, this is going to be my first experience. Like,
had you watched Secret Lives yet?
Of Mormon Wives?
Yes.
I'd watched the first season.
Okay, so not the most recent one
Not
where
yet.
they're doing ketamine.
Not yet.
Okay.
But I think there was definitely, a stigma in my mind that I was like, don't people just like take this at warehouses at a rave or something, like for fun? The idea of then doing an intravenous drug also kind of called up some imagery that's not so pleasant. And at the same time, I was like, well, how messed up am I that I need to go straight to this drastic measure? Like, what is so broken about me that I need to do IV drugs to get myself better? But at the same time, I was kind of like, I didn't even fight her on it. I asked questions and I did some research. I was desperate. So I was like, all right, let's do it.
Did you have conversations with your family and your husband's family before going into this and get everyone else's feedback about it?
No. My husband and I decided on it together, and he came with me for the first treatment. I was terrified.
So no one from your family knew you were doing it?
Not until after I finished the first course. There's like an intro course that you do, basically. They have found, the clinic that I've gone to, that the most effective way to start with ketamine treatment is to do 4 sessions in a 2-week period.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I told everyone.
So let's talk about that first session. You go in, you're in this specialized area where they do this, and they put the IV in, and what in your mind, as far as your memory serves, what did you see? What was happening in the moment of that session?
So I started out kind of just like thinking. You're very present. It's not like you don't know what's happening. You kind of physically disassociate from your body, at least my experience, but you're aware that you're in a room in a medical-esque facility, like getting treatment, and that you're on ketamine. I was very aware of that fact.
And your husband's in the room with you?
No, he was not. It's a nurse who stays. I think actually the first session, the physician stayed in the room with me the whole time.
Okay. And are you sitting up or lying down?
Lying down in a very comfortable chair with an eye mask on and headphones on.
Ooh.
And
what are you listening to?
They have like ketamine curated playlists that they come up
Music
with
or guided?
music.
Okay.
Like they come up with this, I believe, like in tandem with scientists and musicians to like help guide a nice experience.
Oh, it's
for
like
you.
brainwave therapy too.
They spray a scent that's like corresponding to a mood that you're trying to encourage. And they also have like a tea that corresponds. It's a very lovely experience. Mine is the fact that you're there to treat serious depression.
Yes.
But that first trip, I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling anything yet. I'm just kind of hanging out, thinking.
So what happened? You're just having deep thoughts.
Just thinking. And then I like feel my whole body lift somehow. It's kind of like being on a virtual reality ride.
Yeah.
You feel your body lift into the air, or I did, and you start seeing things. For me, it was kind of akin to those old Mac screensavers or something out of Inside Out. Like whoever made those Mac screensavers, I would bet money like did psychedelics or something
You mean
of the
like
sort.
shapes and colors and things bouncing around?
Like folding into each other,
Okay.
yes, and like the space kind of collapses around you and into you and everything. But you feel your body move kind of in accordance with that, even though you're not actually moving.
Right.
I also had images of, my children, me with them, places from my childhood that were meaningful to me. And then I did actually kind of relive both births, which was interesting.
In a positive light?
Yes. It helped me to kind of reframe my son's birth as not being so angry, but more accepting of the experience, more excited that he was just here. He's in this world. And like, how lucky am I that that's the case? Because that kid is amazing. My son is awesome. He's so much fun. And what I got out of it was worth every second of how hard that was.
And then you go home from this first experience knowing you're going to come back for 3 more within 2 weeks. Did you feel any different from when you left your home?
Not the first day. I think I felt a little ill.
Like nauseous?
Yeah, nauseous. Kind of like having a hangover.
Okay.
Was how I felt. I was just a little out of it and nauseous and tired. I think the experience was emotionally draining in a lot of ways because I also had to do a lot of self-talk in that time during the session to reframe everything was okay, to create a safe space in my own mind for myself.
It's almost like your brain is on overdrive, being extremely creative.
Yes.
And so I can imagine it as a muscle being exhausted.
Yeah.
After that's over.
Yeah. So I came home, I passed out. I don't think I felt like immediately better that night. I would say within the next few days, though, I definitely felt the shift. And by the time my second, third session were done, like it was an incredible difference.
Have you spoken at all about how much it costs to do this?
I haven't. I'm happy to.
Yeah, I would love to know.
Yeah, so it's $550 per session. There's also kind of an orientation fee, I believe. I can't remember, maybe $200, $250, something like that. If you have out-of-network benefits, there is a way to get part of it covered.
Okay.
There is definitely a push in the ketamine world, and this is something that I have spoken with physicians and clinics like mine, Ember, about. There is a push to make this more accessible because it is such an effective treatment. And I'm incredibly lucky that this was something that I could just, put on my credit card without thinking about it. But this was so life-changing for me that I very much hope, and I know a lot of people who are in this field also feel that it would be wonderful to make this more accessible to people who, of course, that is not a number to scoff at. It's an expensive treatment.
And so what does the course of action look like from here forward?
I've had a pretty miraculous response to ketamine. It's worked incredibly well for me. I did not go on SSRIs in tandem with it. I am considered what they call in remission. My depression has lifted so much that I just received maintenance treatments. And the plan is to kind of do them as needed. It's about every 5 weeks now. The goal being that you stretch it out even more over time.
So once you opened up to your families about it, what was the reception like?
The predominant reception was, I'm just so sorry that you were at that place, that this is what needed to happen. And I think a lot of people didn't see it, in part because I didn't see it. Like my husband lived it day to day, so he knew that things were bad. But I was carrying on. I wasn't hiding anything necessarily from my family, even from my followers on TikTok. I wasn't hiding the ball. It just on most days I felt pretty okay and I was functioning. And then there were other times where it was just so dark. And I think the predominant response from my family across the board was just, how do we help? And I'm sorry you got there and that we didn't see it.
This leads me into another conversation about family.
Yeah.
And something we were talking about earlier before starting to record. Lia is the daughter-in-law of Barbara Corcoran from Shark Tank, investor, entrepreneur, and TV personality.
Yes.
I see her in your content, and I see that she's a big part of
Yeah.
obviously your life and your kids' lives. And I know you've been with your husband since high school.
Yep.
So she's been part of your life for a really long time.
Yeah.
I've been thinking recently just how interesting it must be for you now, being in law is one thing. You have your own career.
Right.
As you told me before we started this, you didn't even tell anyone at your law firm for years that you were her daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So, you totally had your own path and she had hers.
Right.
And now the two of you, with her being in entertainment, not necessarily the investor side, the two of you are sort of merging closer and closer together in what you do.
Yeah.
And she's got a large social following and you have a large following and you guys include each other, but you also somewhat keep your brands separate. And I just want to hear, as the daughter-in-law of someone who is so well known and you're dropping her into your content here and there, there's got to be pros and cons for you of, obviously pros of her maybe helping you get followers. I'm sure some of your content with her has gone viral. Yeah. As well as you learning a lot from her as a mentor and potentially doors opening for you because of that connection. Yeah. But I was thinking about maybe some of the drawbacks, maybe sometimes when you feel like, do people think that my mother-in-law got me this job or this opportunity? Or are people trying to get close to me just so that they can get to know her? Yeah. Has that ever come up for you?
Yes. All of the above. It's all come up. I'm actually wearing, I think this was a shirt that she wore on Shark Tank. She gave this to me recently.
A TV shirt.
So I reaped that benefit.
You do get a nice wardrobe.
Yes, I definitely get some of the stuff that she's been told that she's worn to death and needs to move along from.
Does she have a daughter?
Yes, but Katie is younger and also so much taller than we both are. Stunningly beautiful, like supermodel tall. So it's just a different size situation. And also she's like, I don't want to wear that. Like, I'm in college and this is not what I want to wear.
You're more aligned with Barbara's style at this point in time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I can step into her wardrobe and have it be appropriate. Although I have been accused of dressing a little bit datedly. And you know what? Sue me. Like, I think I dress with a classic style. So I'm going to go with that.
Timeless.
Exactly. In terms of there being pros and cons, I would say there's more pros than cons in the sense that she's a wonderful mentor and has been nothing but a cheerleader through this whole thing. People have asked me if she's supportive of you doing content and everything and also having her. Yes, she's incredibly supportive. Whether that's, giving me ideas for content or, hey, is there someone I could introduce you to? Generally speaking, I have not necessarily gotten opportunities directly through her. And I think that's a lot of people were like, oh, you must have gotten your big law job from her. No, no. Like separate, different situation. I think what happens is that if there's an introduction that I would like, oftentimes she's happy to provide it, or she does it on her own. She said, hey, I think you should talk to this person. I think you should meet this person. And that's been great. And, like you said earlier, there's definitely posts that go viral, probably more than anything because she's in it or because her amazing real estate is in it.
Yes.
And I have mixed feelings about that. Sometimes I do worry that people are only following my account, and I'm sure that's true, for her, which is fine. But at the same time, and I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier, like, I have a family account. She's my family. And I am fortunate to say that she is an involved mother-in-law and grandparent. Mm-hmm. She is at my house frequently, because she is putting the kids to bed or stopping by in the middle of her workday, or she just landed from LA and she wants to come kiss them good. She's there. And if I'm filming that day, I'll probably catch her. There are so many moments that you guys don't see me film, right? Where she's around. There's so much of that time that's not there. The holiday thing, a lot of those videos go viral. Like, I could lie to you and I could tell you that I could set a Thanksgiving table at my apartment and tell you that's where we did Thanksgiving. But that would be lying. That would be inauthentic. This is what my Thanksgiving looked like. It just so happens that I celebrate it with somebody who's also in the public eye and in a quite spectacular piece of real estate. And I don't know what to tell you.
One of the most stunning tables I've ever seen.
Yeah, also she sets a great table.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, oh, she probably didn't do anything. My mother-in-law makes all her own flower arrangements. Yeah. She spent all weekend in the garden with my son. Like,
So cute.
they pick basil and flowers for me, whatever. Like, this is my life. I show it to you. It happens to be that there's someone who is in the public eye in it.
Yeah.
And there's so many moments that you don't see also. You know, we're just hanging out as a family. Generally, we're a very normal family.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of, you know, the downside is that I'm sure there are people who have resentment about questions about where I got in my life. Were they due to her, due to my own family and privilege I had growing up? It's hard to say.
Mm-hmm.
I can say that I've been given incredible opportunities and I've been very lucky to be in the situation that I'm in. But I've also, you know, I've held my own. I've worked really hard.
We were talking about how you and your husband both were raised in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
which is obviously an expensive place to be from and an
Yeah.
expensive place to live. And
Mm-hmm.
are you from the Upper East Side?
Yeah.
So, you know, Gossip Girl, people have to watch Leah's Gossip Girl content on TikTok, but anyone who follows Lia on social, it's easy to see in the first piece of content that you live in a very privileged life
Mm-hmm.
and that you have a gorgeous apartment in New York City, you know, a day in the life as a New York City mom, but oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is your kitchen, this is your home, this is your
Right.
life. Being on social media, it is a little bit of a can't win
Mm-hmm.
because the truth is the whole world wants that. I think that's what everyone's working towards, but once you get it, oh, you better not have that. You better not show that.
Right.
Check your privilege.
Right.
It's a little bit of a catch-22
Right.
to be on social media and to be promoting your life if you are in a
Yep.
privileged situation.
My policy with this all is kind of just not to lie about it, really.
I like that
in that
policy.
way. Like I said, similarly with showing my mother-in-law, I could not show you her, but it wouldn't be authentic to my actual life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I could not show you. I could not show you what my kitchen looks like. I could not show you what I'm wearing. You're cutting out a lot of content at that point. I try not to shove it in everyone's face. I do also plainly acknowledge it, especially we were talking about the childcare piece. I get a lot of questions about having a nanny. I just say, I have a full-time nanny Monday through Friday. And like, listen, I think the comment that I get that's negative sometimes is that, oh, she's out of touch. And I think a lot of, you know, more privileged content creators and influencers get that comment. Like their perspective is out of touch. But I think there's a difference between being out of touch and being privileged, but also being aware.
As someone who, in just the past year or two, has grown this following on social media, all while you're going through mental health challenges,
Yes.
have you run into instances where the feedback you're getting on social media or the commentary you're getting, whether or not it's about family or wealth or anything, but just being on the internet and existing, you're going to get comments.
Yeah.
Has that played into diminished mental health?
Yes. I think I've done a much better job of kind of tuning out the noise these days. You know, inevitably you see comments, whether they're directly on your posts and they don't get filtered out, or, you know, you're, you know, can't help yourself and you check the filtered post, or God forbid you look at Reddit. You're going to see some nasty stuff. And sometimes you wonder if it's true. And other times you know it's not true, but you can't really address it. And it's frustrating. There's also, of course, like a comparison element of social media that I think everyone experiences, but is so amplified if your world is, you know, or your job at least is based on social media now. And to some degree, like I would say, yeah, my current job is very much surrounded by or based in social media.
Right.
Having that big a part of your self-worth be based on how many likes you get, views you get, and then throw in whatever nasty comment people say, that can be really hurtful. Definitely at some point it takes a toll. And if you're already in a flimsy state, which I wouldn't say I have been throughout my life, right? I'm generally a pretty confident, happy person. I'm pretty secure in who I am. But if you're already kind of struggling the way I was with the postpartum depression, at some point it's going to start to wear on you a little bit.
Yeah. The internet's commentary can be a minefield
Yes.
to walk through. What have been the nature of the comments that you really feel like get to you versus the ones that you can just see and ignore?
I think the ones commenting on my appearance, yeah, I don't care. Like, all right. Like some people say I look old, or like I said, you know, things about my clothing. Okay, fine. Show me your wardrobe. Like, I would never sit there and critique it. So I would say that's beautiful. You look wonderful in that.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to go after someone's appearance, it kind of feels like low-hanging fruit. Like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
There was a comment I read once that said I was mean, and that actually bothered me because that's not true. And I was kind of taken aback by that. Or inauthentic, that's the other one that got me.
Was it someone claiming that they met you and that you were mean?
Yeah, and I don't think I'm a mean person. Maybe I had a bad day and I wasn't overly nice. The only people maybe I've been actively mean to, like my best friend's ex-boyfriends all hate me. So like, I don't know.
As they should.
I got no shame in that. I don't have any shame in that. I think the comments I've gotten about my content being solely about my mother-in-law is really bothersome sometimes because that's also not true. And it really undermines everything else that I have put into my content, messaging about motherhood, talking about my hemorrhage, my miscarriage, putting all of that out there. It's like, just because those are the videos you watch, it's probably because you watch them all the way through, so the algorithm is feeding you those.
Right.
That doesn't mean that that's the only content I'm putting out there. A lot of people also got all bent out of shape about the fact that I identified as a big law attorney. And I've recently actually addressed that one.
As opposed to what?
Right, like just saying I'm a lawyer. I gotta tell you, it's a different experience. And my
What
experience,
exactly is big law?
Big law identifies a certain set of firms that are larger in size, known for larger clients. There is a prestige element to it. But there's also, anyone in the legal field kind of knows that there's a salary element to it. There's a billing expectation element. It has colored my experience. But the only jobs that I've had other than internships have been in big law, because I was a paralegal in big law for 2 years before I went to law school. And then I was an attorney. And that's my experience. So I just can't change it. I got nothing wrong with working at a smaller firm, going in-house. In fact, I think those would all be lovely things for me to do at some point in my life. And in fact, because I think in some ways those are way better in terms of a lifestyle fit, like I envy those people going in there, but it wasn't my experience.
Right.
So I can't say that. And maybe I could just say I'm a lawyer, but that also doesn't quite capture why my hours were so out of control and why I was struggling so much with balancing my life as a working mom. My lifestyle would be a hell of a lot better if I was an in-house attorney who could not answer their phone, on a Saturday or something like that. You know this, so much of social media and content creation is storytelling.
I think some of the commentary about a person's character, when you are the person, and you kind of know your intentions in life, that's a lot of the hard stuff to stomach, is like, to what degree is it my responsibility to prove to you that I'm not who you think I am, versus living my life realizing you can't win with some people, and not even attempting to change people's minds.
Yeah.
Because you can't.
I can't address it in every video, but I get it for sure. I'm not naive to think that, people looking at my life wouldn't want to say, like, fuck her. Like, this isn't a fair world. And you know what? I don't blame them. I think, as I was saying earlier, I just do my best to navigate the world of social media with an authenticity as well as like an awareness of the world. But I can't lie about, the fact that I have childcare, because otherwise you're going to see my video and be like, well, who the hell is watching these kids?
Right, where are they right now?
Like, they're not young and they're not old enough to be in school full time. So like, where are these children? I've also, this actually isn't something I've talked about a lot yet, and I haven't said on my page yet, but I have been kind of making a conscious effort to filter out my children from my content a bit more. I don't have an issue showing them, and I don't criticize any mom that does choose to show their children. I think I have had those conversations with my family and made a conscious decision to show my children. I am careful about how. I won't show them in any way that could potentially, or at least not on purpose, potentially be misused or...
Of course.
But sometimes one of the comments that I would get was, you're never with your kids. And it's like, no, I'm showing you, a couple hours of my week where either it's easier for me to film because I'm not with my kids, or because I don't want to show you that much of my kids.
Right. For the most part, I try as much as I can to create content that's not involving their faces, which therefore means a lot of my content is not about motherhood or parenting or kids, which then could lead to the conversation of what you're not with your kids all day.
Right.
When really it's actually, this is my work time and I'm creating content that's unrelated so that my platforms don't become all about family and kids.
Yeah. My content is definitely more about motherhood, right? But I think that there's a way to do it. I hope that it's more my lived experience in motherhood and less so about my children's. There are parts of my life that are interesting without my kids. How I'm navigating this career change for a while was like, I don't know. And we're just trying to get a handle on the situation right now.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I'm writing so much, I'm doing investing and going to explore all these different philanthropic opportunities that are perhaps different than what I've done in the past, and working with these really interesting organizations, some of which I can talk about and some of which I can't. And there are just other interesting things to say in addition to my life as a mother. And I think that part of it is how I am navigating who I am and this career change in the wake of motherhood and because I became a mom. And I do believe that a huge part of my shift was due to motherhood because I wanted to be with my children more. But that means that I want to actually be present with them when I'm with them. And that means that you're not seeing it necessarily. Tough shit. Tough cookies. I don't know. Like, that's how I feel about it. You're going to see them sometimes when I feel like, oh, this is so cute. I'm going to whip out my camera and like, we're doing something fun today and different and like, great. But I'm not going to show you their day-to-day all the time necessarily because that's not right for me. And again, there's no shade to any mom that is doing that. It's just not what I necessarily feel like I want to do right now.
Well, Lia, thank you so much for being here, coming in person.
Thanks for
having me.
For
the eloquence with which you spoke and for sharing so much honesty and authenticity with us. It was so great to have you here. Can you please tell my followers where they can find you and follow you and what we can expect to see from you in the future?
Ooh, you can follow me at OneLitMama. It's OneLitMama with an underscore at the end, both on TikTok and Instagram. And then I am also having so much fun with Substack. My Substack is called Mom Talk by Lia Higgins. And that's honestly where I think I'm going to be allocating even more of my time. We've kind of talked about this offline a lot. I love to write, and hopefully there are more freelance pieces and maybe even bigger projects on the writing front down the line. So
we're wishing you luck. We'll all be watching. Thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Lucie.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Real Stuff podcast. If you're liking the show, please head over to Apple or Spotify and leave us a written review. If you're watching on YouTube, drop a comment down below and join in the conversation. And if you're feeling called to be a guest on the show, visit luciefink.com/apply and tell us your story. Thank you so much, as always, for sharing your time and attention with us, and we will see you next time on the Real Stuff podcast.
Please note that this episode may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products and services. Individuals on the show may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to in this episode.